And former chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ribadu, has described as fake news the social media claims that he accused some top Nigerians, including President Muhammadu Buhari, of being chief sponsors of banditry in the north. Ribadu, at a briefing in Abuja, is also calling on law enforcement agencies to deploy technology in tackling perpetrators of fake news and those circulating such information, despite his repeated denials since 2019 when the message first surfaced online. The retired police chief is also calling on global technology companies such as Facebook, Google and others to do more in dealing harshly with purveyors of fake news before they destroy developing countries like Nigeria.
This is something pure fabrication that had no basis, no quotation, nowhere I ever granted any interview, nowhere I even had any, whether it was a media interaction or any write-up or any lecture anywhere. Just a piece of just rubbish with very poor grammar and factual, distortions, even calling me a deputy superintendent of police. So totally fabrication, but indeed very damaging. I deny it strongly. And still, after that, it did not stop. I was forced again to issue a statement saying that I personally have never had anything like this with anybody, and denied it completely. And I thought that probably would have been the end of it. To be honest, I don't know. I really can't know who exactly is, but whoever is been very unfair to me, unjust to me, and he has hurt me a lot, unfairly, whoever it is. So, but I think the owners of these social media companies should do something about it. Innocent people are being made to suffer. And it's not fair, it's not just, and it's not right. So combination of government and the companies can do something. And also media. Media do have a strong position to fight it. Because good media will have to fight bad media. It's the duty of the established media to also not allow it to continue.
The former EFCC boss there, Ribadu. Well, for more on this, let's now bring in Arise News analyst MAHMUD JEGA, who joins me now in the studio. MAHMUD, thank you so much for joining me tonight in the studio, really. And of course, a good place to start this conversation is Ribadu, who's talking about fake news and the fact that we have a problem of fake news in the country. Well, he's talking about big tech companies such as Google, Facebook and the likes doing more to fight fake news. What more really can they do, especially in the peculiar situation we find ourselves here in Nigeria?
It's a worldwide problem because, as you know, even recently the American Congress was holding all kinds of hearings, and even the proprietor of Facebook said that more regulation is needed in some areas. But specifically about our own countries, there are organized groups that deliberately release fake news in order to destabilize our countries. But then there are also the lone rangers, some lone individuals who just post anything. Those ones are probably more difficult to control than the big organized ones. But the technology giants could have many ways of doing it. They could flag down some messages, cross-check and do all that, because really it is destroying societies, this phenomenon of fake news.
Right, and this is coming off of the fact that just during the week we saw a whistleblower from Facebook talking about Frances Hogan. She actually spoke about the fact that these tech giants, they have more responsibility really to flag off some of this point. But here in Nigeria, we're seeing a country where even Twitter is not functioning right now because the government is actually trying to regulate it to a certain extent. So combating fake news, what more should the government be doing beyond what is already obtainable in the country?
Well, I not being a technology expert myself, I cannot say 1, 2, 3. But
we can look at the policy aspect of it and how we can manage it.
Because like that whistleblower said, that Facebook and some of the other technology giants do not mind fake news because it increases hits and increases their profits and revenue. So to that extent, they have to be called to order and to bring the right technological solutions in order to filter the news and remove those ones that could destabilize societies. I mean, they also have to be made to understand that if the societies fall apart, nobody will make any profit. Nobody will make any profit at all.
Right, and of course, we're seeing a country that is budgeting, Nigeria, for instance, is budgeting about 104 million, to fight fake news in the 2022 budget estimate. But let's move beyond that right now. Let's talk about the Vice President who was speaking in London, and he's actually galvanizing that Nigeria is better as a one united nation. This call, why do you think he felt the need to actually make it, especially where he is?
He was speaking abroad, and I think the understanding is that a lot of the threats to the country's unity and stability stem from abroad. I mean, specifically from some elements of Nigerians in diaspora. They are far away from the scene, comfortable in their domains, and they keep sending messages through the social media that has very deleterious effect inside the country. I'm sure that's what the Vice President is addressing with the speech that he gave in London.
Right, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying the need, why he felt the need to actually have this message passed at this particular point in time. I ask you this, because if you look at the accusations during the course of the week, it was, said that people outside of the country are the one who are actually pushing the likes of the IPOB and even sponsoring them to call for a secession and a division of Nigeria.
Well,
the need is the question, Mahmoud.
Well, the need. I mean, the agitations for secession and breakup, born out of economic or social and political frustration, has gotten louder in the country in recent years. So the Vice President obviously is concerned that it is a major threat to the peace of the country, and he thought he was addressing an audience close to the source of the problem. It's not the only source, but it's a big element in fueling the secessionist and other separatist agitation. So I think he chose his audience correctly.
Right, and let's talk about the fact that, as we wrap up this conversation, 10 out of the 12 Super Tucano A29 jets that we have ordered from the United States have so far been delivered. Let's talk about the moral booster that this will be, really, for the troops who are at the forefront fighting not just Boko Haram right now, but all sorts of criminalities.
Well, as we all see from news reports of activities at the war fronts, the Air Force has greatly upped its game in recent months, and there are a lot more daily air strikes now against both the insurgents in the northeast and the bandits in the northwest, almost on a daily basis. The Minister of Information was quoted as saying that the two Super Tucanos have made a big difference in their arrival. The reason why it became difficult for us to make that evaluation is because although the Air Force regularly announces the number of airstrikes and their locations and the effects that they have had, they, I noticed, do not mention specifically that it is the Super Tucanos that carried out those attacks. They must have a reason, strategic or security or otherwise. But there is no doubt that the effectiveness of some of the strikes that we have seen in Zamfara, in Kaduna, and also in the northeast suggests that it is these Super Tucanos, given what we had about the capabilities of that plane of precision bombing before we acquired it.
So you agree with the government that we're actually winning the war against,
well,
insurgency
anybody can
and
see,
criminals in Nigeria?
Anybody can see that the insurgents have been greatly weakened in the northeast. They are not finished, but they are greatly weakened. Now they can hardly launch any major attacks. They have been reduced to some enclaves, and there is also a lot of infighting among them, which is usually what happens when you are losing a war. Then you begin to blame, even in a football field, when you are losing, you begin to blame each other, and that will compound your problems. The bandits are more difficult because they are more dispersed. They don't have a central command. They are spread over many more states. But even them, I think the government seems to be making headway in some states. The problem is that it requires maybe a massive military operation across a broad zone. But I don't think the army has enough troops to do that. So they are going state by state in Zamfara, shut down communications here, go to neighboring state. Unfortunately, the bandits are very mobile. If you do that in Zamfara, they move to another state. It would have been ideal to cover the whole northwest zone, but probably the army does not have the resources to do that.
All right, that's why the deployment of technology is being called upon right now. MAHMUD JEGA, for your in-depth analysis, I say thank you very much.